These are the most hardcore off-road HDs you can buy today. But which one makes more sense? The Ford F250 Tremor or the Ram 2500 Power Wagon? I borrowed these trucks from Larry H. Miller, Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram here in Sandy, Utah, and Larry H. Miller Super Ford in Salt Lake City. Both of these trucks are available for sale. Let's go ahead and check out the pricing, because obviously that's going to be a big factor of which truck you're going to probably buy. Starting with the Ford. At the very top is the description and standard equipment. Be sure to pause it. And then down below you guys will see this truck has a base price of $64,740. Now this truck has the black appearance package, it has the Lariat Ultimate package and Pro Power on board in the bed, twin panel moonroof. So it's really decked out. I've done a video on this truck separately, so go back and check it out. Let's check out the Ram's window sticker. Base price for the Power Wagon is going to be $68,225, and then this is a short listing of the standard equipment. Now the notable options are the level 2 equipment group. Be sure to pause it. You guys can see what's in there. Also, this truck does have a sunroof and ram boxes, spray and bed liner. Destination's right there, and then that's the total price. So when you consider the base price of these two trucks, the Power Wagon is $3,485 more. Now that's obviously assuming both trucks have a gas engine, although that Power Wagon only has a gas engine availability. You have to move up to a Rebel to get the Cummins. Now with that being said, let's start off on the Ford. Now Ford does allow you to pick this Tremor from an XLT all the way to a Platinum. Now what that means is if you get it on the Lariat and got no other options with the Tremor package, you would have chrome front bumpers. Most people are okay with that, and I think it looks pretty good, especially with colors like this. But with the Lariat, this does have the black appearance, which gives it the painted bumpers. Also gives it blackout on the front grille and on the badges. Now it does come standard with the LED reflector style headlights on the Lariat as well, including the fog lights. Now this has the Ultimate package, so it has the front parking sensors. All those things would be an option on this truck. On the Power Wagon, it does come technically in two trims. You can get this in a Tradesman, and it would basically be like an $8,000 add-on package to that truck, but you're going to basically have a work truck interior and exterior for the most part with this Power Wagon package, which would give you the wheels, tires, and all the goodies. Now on the front end, you guys can see you have those vertical slots in the grille, which look really, really good. And this one does have that level 2 equipment group, which gives you the projector style LED headlights. Now front parking sensors do come standard. You guys see the recovery hooks up front, and there is a forward facing camera, which is going to be an option. Active grille shutters. Now with the Power Wagon, you do get the worn winch standard. With the Ford, it is an option to get a worn winch. However, it is a dealer installed option, so they have to remove the bumper. And yeah, I think I like what Ram does better. Comes from the factory with the worn winch already installed, and that's it. They both have the synthetic cable, and you have the controller that you can use inside the truck if you need to steer. Now with that being said, neither truck has front skid plates. You guys can see the valance on the Ford is shortened for better ground clearance, and same thing goes on that Ram. But yeah, here's a look underneath. Nothing. There is no skid plates on the front of either truck. Okay, as far as the front bumpers go, you guys can see Ram does give you a steel bumper, and you can get chrome or painted ones like you see on this Lariat. If you go from Lariat to Platinum, it would be painted standard. King Ranch also has chrome bumpers or two-tone painted. Let's talk about the wheels and tires and suspension for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and turn out the wheels so you guys can see a little bit better. I don't know if you guys can tell the difference. I might have a little bit of a glare or shade kind of blocking, but you can pretty much tell that on this side too is the same. But yeah, the Ford tires are taller because they're a 35-inch tire versus a 33-inch tire. Now they're basically the exact same brand of tire. These are the Goodyear Wrangler Duratrax, and for the most part they have a lot of aggressive styling to them. And on the Ram, this is a 17-inch wheel, and then on the Ford you have an 18-inch wheel. Now, going off-road, obviously most people are going to say the smaller the wheel the better, but on this tire, what's the capacity? Because that's important for an HD truck. 3,195 pounds at 65 psi, and on the Ford it's going to be 4,080 pounds at 80 psi. So you can pretty much tell this truck is for towing, because they use a pretty solid tire. They still go up to 80 psi. And as far as the wheel design goes, I am not a fan of the Tremor wheels. I hope they do something different. Even if they did a blackout with this, I would like that better. On the Ram, you guys can see it already has the blackout on the wheel. But yeah, you definitely have less capacity for the tires. And it's just a 33-inch tire. Now, the exact tire size for the Ram is going to be 32.7 inches tall, okay? For the Ford, it's going to be 34.8 inches tall. Now, the width for the Ram is going to be 11.2, and it's going to be the exact same for the Ford. On the Ford, you do have a solid front axle, and the same thing goes on the Ram side, solid front axle. Now, the advantage that Ram has is you have a front locker on this truck, okay? You guys can also see you have some Bilstein shocks in there too. You can see some of that yellow probably right there a little bit better. Now, on the Ford, you do have a LSD, limited slip diff, and then they do have the Tremor tuned shocks on this truck. Something else to consider is on the front, you do have a sway bar disconnect. That's probably the mechanism right there for that. It probably just breaks apart right there and just allows you to have more articulation. Now, here's what I'll say. The reason why Ram does not run 35-inch tires on the Power Wagon is because this is going to give you more articulation. When you have a taller tire, you're going to reduce that articulation a little bit. So having that front sway bar disconnect and just having that locker allows you to just do more off-road stuff with a shorter tire. So it does make sense in theory, but for styling, most people want that taller tire, including myself. Ram does give you the tubular style off-road running boards, and Ford has these high clearance steps, which are so much nicer. I prefer these over the tubular style. You can get rock rails on the Ram. Now, they do bolt these into the cab of the truck. Whenever I do a video in the future, maybe I'll check how they add the rock rails if one comes in for the Rams, but I definitely prefer those to be bolted into the frame for sure. You do get these fender flares for the Power Wagon. The truck does have the Ram boxes, as you guys saw, which gives you extra storage. Ford does give you these steps. You have a larger fuel tank on this side, 34 gallon versus 31 gallon, and you cannot get a long bed with either truck either. Liner out back for the Ford, same thing goes for that Ram. And they do give you a coiled suspension out back on the Ram. Multi-link, you can see some of the links on this side. There's going to be two on the other side and there's one out back. Now, as far as the axle ratio goes, you guys probably saw it had a 410 rear. Okay, so you're going to have that 410 and it's going to have a locker, so front and rear locker. And thankfully, Ram gives you a matching tire, but they don't give you a matching wheel. They are some cheap mofos over there. Now, as I said earlier, you guys saw the tire capacity, right? This truck is geared towards towing. So you have 4 liters in the main pack with an overload. And out back, you guys will see, this truck does have a full-size spare tire, matching wheel, and it does have a locker in the rear. You guys can see those Tremor tuned shock absorbers a little bit better too. 355 rear end on the diesel, and if you get a gas truck, it would have a 430 rear end. Now with this truck has a lot of options on it. But you guys can see in the bed, you do have 2,000 watts of power. You have the bed lights, and you guys just saw that it had assisted tailgate. On the Ram, they do provide lights too for your conventional hitch, assisted tailgate, and the Ram box do make this a little bit smaller. But bed lights, top and bottom. You have a camera for the bed too on both sides of the house as well. And then here's some of the badging. And then Ram's is like right there for the decals. not bad. And because it has a blackout, it's not orange. Let's talk about the powertrains next. The Power Wagon only has availability for one engine option. The Ford has two. Starting off on the Ram, you have the standard 6.4 liter Hemi, which as you just heard is the only option you can get. This is going to be port injection, and it's going to have 410 horsepower and 429 pound-feet of torque, I believe. 8-speed transmission known as the 8HP75, which is the ZF transmission. Despite online hate about Chrysler products having bad transmissions, that's probably the most reliable thing in this truck. Now, with that being said, if you want to pretend with me that this has the gas engine, let's do that. Although you guys probably saw it has a diesel. The 7.3 is going to have 430 horsepower and 485 pound-feet of torque, I believe. Now, this is going to be port injection only, just like that Ram's 6.4 Hemi. Now, 10-speed transmission would come behind that 7.3, and as you guys heard, the 430 rear end is a little bit lower gearing compared to that Ram over there. Now, with the availability of the diesel, this is the only diesel option. You have the high output and the standard output. This being the high output, 500 horsepower, 1200 pound-feet of torque, class leading across the board. And it all depends on what you're looking for, but obviously the Ford wins because you have more options for powertrains. Let's check out the interiors. One last thing, you do get the Sport Performance hood on the Ram. The Ford has the standard hood. This Ford does have a really nice interior. However, if you're looking for a more off-road oriented interior, you can't get that on this truck. The Tremor only gives you the outside appearance of an off-road truck, but the interiors are going to match everything else. So with that being said, a lot of nice ergonomics inside of here. One thing I like about the Ford is it does have big seats, and you have the 10-way here. You have power pedals and a power steering column. 3 seat memories, power tow mode, power folding, and this truck does have 2 screens. So let's go and start it up. Now, obviously, if you're looking at one of these trucks, these features are going to be the most important ones. So you have the trail control, so you can basically set that for cruise control for the trail without having to use the gas pedal. You would only use the brake pedal to stop, right? Also, this truck does have a rear locker, as you guys heard, but it does have trail turn assist. The Power Wagon does have a unique interior, so most of this is going to be a carryover from either a Laramie or a Limited. But when you look at the seats, it does say Power Wagon right there. They also give you a badge for the center console, and they provide this badge for you as well. It shows you the power, gross vehicle weight rating, and the gross combined weight rating. As far as the interior goes, you do have an optional 12-inch display. It would come standard with an 8.4-inch display, so Ford does have an advantage for a lariat up trim level for the Tremor package, okay? 12-inch gauge cluster right here. Now, here is the advantage on the Ram. Off-road pages. So they give you a nice readout here for your steering angle. You can also see your axles. You can see if they're locked or unlocked here. You can see that you're in too high, sway bar disconnect. Also, I love the fact that they give you the gauges over here. So if you are on the trail, you can see the temperatures and kind of monitor those. Pitch and roll. And they do give you a forward facing camera. So if you need help maneuvering around a rock or going over one, they have this as well. And you guys can see the lines too. Now, as I said earlier, you do have a front and rear locker, right? Also, you do have a sway bar disconnect button right there for high, for low. There is no four-wheel drive automatic, which I would like to see hopefully in the future. But having that extra, function of the sway bar disconnect, it does allow you to articulate a little bit more on the trails. Now, the same gauges that you saw on that side, they also have them here, and I just like the layout. This is a really nice screen. It has a nice color to it, and yeah, just a few more things here. Actually, I think I might have already gone way around, but yeah, I think that Ram has done a great job with this system here. Now, here's the advantage on the Ford. They may not have a sway bar disconnect in a front locker. However, they do have multiple drive modes. So when you get the Tremor package, you have an eco mode, tow haul, which both trucks have, but you have normal, slippery, off-road, and you have a rock crawl as well that you can use in 4 low. So again, I think that having that plus the trail control and the trail turn assist, all those features are just nice to have. And then they changed the layout of the gauge cluster too. So when it's all said and done, you still have a lot of those gauges that you saw on that Ram on this screen here. So they may not have an off-road page. Well, they do have an off-road page, I guess, but it's not as nice as what you guys just saw. So let's just see. If you go to the gauges, you'll see here are some of the measurements for the temperatures, and they have a diesel measurement layout too. And if you go back, off-road pages are right here. So it just shows you the compass, shows you an off-road status, and then it shows you the pitch and roll, and that's pretty much it. Now on this side of the house, you don't have an off-road page availability. Even if you go to futures, same story. So I would like to see that from Ford, maybe, if they decide they want to add that, because that is a nice advantage. But apart from that, both trucks have heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, and they come pretty well appointed. Now one thing I will say is I love where Ford puts their auxiliary switches. That is the best spot for them. And let's see, did the Ram have those? Hold on one second. The Ram did not have any auxiliary switches here. And then you guys can see sunroof. It doesn't have a twin panel moonroof like that Ford. And as we all know, the cabs on the Ford are superior to the Ram because this one hasn't been redesigned in a long time. Last thing we're gonna go over is the tow numbers, which I call the payload. I don't really look at tow numbers because these trucks have huge numbers, but the payload is what's more important. So front gross axle rating is gonna be 5,200 pounds. The rear is gonna be 6,240 pounds. And you guys can see the gross vehicle weight rating is gonna be 11,000 pounds, okay? Those wheels are 18 by 8 wide, and you guys see there, the payload is 2,848 pounds. On the Ram, you guys will see the gross axle weight rating up front is gonna be 4,750 pounds. The rear gross axle rating is gonna be 6,200 pounds. Gross vehicle weight rating, as you saw earlier, was 8,565 pounds. 17 by 8 wide wheels, and all-in payload is 1,189 pounds. So this truck on the curb weighs 7,376 pounds versus 8,152 pound curb weight for the Ford. Now the reason why the payload is so low for that Ram is because they lowered the gross vehicle weight rating. As I said earlier, this truck is not really intended to be doing heavy towing because the suspension is different. I didn't mention that to you. This Power Wagon has a 2-inch factory lift. And on the Ford, it's really just lifted on the front. I know a lot of people will say that it's lifted in the rear, and it might have a slight lift from the tires, but they only really lifted the front end of the truck, and maybe the rear is just slightly lifted for the tires. But apart from that, I don't know which truck would win this, because if you really truly are going off-road, the Power Wagon makes more sense. But if you add a gas engine to the Ford, it's really a toss-up. But I think that you get more off-road features that you would really care to have, like the winch, the locker up front, the sway bar disconnect, compared to the LSD on the front of this Ford. And you get the driving modes, which, I mean, they're nice to have. I think the trail turn assist is probably one that you would definitely want with a big truck like this. But yes, in the comment section, let me know which one you like better. For off-road use, I think the Ram wins 100%. But for more versatility outside of off-roading, obviously the Ford win that for sure. But I hope you guys liked the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Make sure your bell notifications are on. See you guys soon.